Are live. Welcome back to It's Not a Sport, episode 21, the summer recap. So it has been a minute since we've done a show, and the reason behind that, just so everyone knows, is life hits you, and during the summer I really had to work more, so I had to cut down on the podcast. But don't worry, this episode will make up for all of that. I got you. Because now that summer's over, we're kicking off into really the holiday season of things, and that's when the whole gaming community and the new games really start to ramp up in September. We see some announcements. It's not really a whole lot of announcements. Summer's more about events and tournaments and all that, which we will go over. But when it comes to games that are being released and playable and reviews, that's from like September to the holiday season. On the side of the show, we're continuing normal schedule like always. 7 p.m. Central Time, Fridays, live. I may or may not go to Mixer, and the reason because of that we'll see in a second when I announce that news, in case you missed it. Of course, we're recapping everything, and I may or may not go into season 3, depending on how much work I can really put up, because I would have to do new art and all that. Anyway, that's the update on the podcast. Let's get into probably the most exciting news, and the most news that came out of this summer is esports, because we had a lot of esports. That being with League of Legends, because now League of Legends is going into Worlds, which is the biggest international tournament. It happens at the end of each year, usually like October-ish. I believe Worlds patch, which they've kind of already started releasing things on, will be in like early October, and that will be the patch that they play all the games on. But going into each individual region, we have Team Liquid, who finished first in the summer split for the LCS. That's North America. They were 14-4. Then Cloud9 was second, which are 13-6. And then COG was third, TSM fourth, Clutch fifth, Optic sixth, Golden Guardian 7, 100 Trash is 8, FlyQuest is 9th, and Echo Fox is 10th. Going into playoffs from that, Counterlogic Gaming and Clutch won quarterfinals against TSM and Optic. Team Liquid won against Clutch, and then they won the finals against Cloud9. So Team Liquid is our first place seed that we're sending to Worlds. Cloud9 is our second place seed that we're sending to Worlds, and I believe Clutch is our third. Yes, Clutch is our third, because they beat FlyQuest, they beat Counterlogic Gaming, and then they beat TSM. So if I'm correct, because this stuff is kind of wonky, and unless you really pay attention to it, it's kind of hard to see like who's going where. But Team Liquid is first, followed by Cloud9, and then Clutch Gaming. Those are the 3 teams that we will be sending to Worlds. For Europe, in the regular season, G2 won. They're 15-3. Followed by Fnatic, which are 14-4, and then Splice, which is 12-6, Skalaco 4, which is 11-7, and then Rogue was 5th, Team Vitality was 6th, SK Gaming was 7th, Origins was 8th, Misfits was 9th, and Excel was last. In playoffs, in round 1 playoffs, because again, every region's different, Rogue beat Splice, 3-0'd them, and Skal 04 beat Team Vitality, 3-1 them. Then in qualifiers, Rogue lost to Skal 04, Fnatic lost to G2. In semifinals, Fnatic won. So I think, and then in quarterfinals, it's still to be decided, but it's Splice 1 against Origins, Skalak 1 against 04, or Splice and Skalaco 4 have yet to play, and then the finals are to be decided. So I think in terms of right now for EU, based on what I'm looking at the standings, the teams that they'll be sending to Worlds will be G2 and Fnatic are going. And then it's either Splice uh Sklok or Origins are the other teams that will be going, depending on who wins. And that's EU. Again, that's all subject to change. Again, don't really quote me on that. I will confirm all that next show, but it's really kind of weird, the system that they have. In terms of the LCK, Griffin was first, followed by Damwon Gaming, then Sandbox, then SKT, then Afrika Freaks, then Genji, Kingzone, KT, Hangwon Life, and Jin Air was last place. In playoffs, SKT won round 1 against Afrika Freaks, then they won again against Sandbox Gaming, and then they won again against Damwon Gaming. In regionals, Kingzone won against Afrika Freaks, Kingzone then won against Sandbox, and Damwon won against Kingzone. So I believe the teams that Korea are sending will be SKT, Griffin, and Damwon are the teams that are going to Worlds for Korea. They also still have relegations in Korea. And it seems, I think, that Hangwon won, so they're still in the league. And I think Jin Air may be out, depending on if I'm reading this right. In LPL, summer split, Fun Plus Phoenix was first, followed by Top Esports, then Royals Never Give Up, then Billy B Gaming, then Edward, Invictus, which were the previous last year's world champions. Lane LNG is 7th, Sunning is 8th, Team WE is 9th, JD is 10th, Daminus is 11th, Victory 5, 12, Rogue Warriors 13, LGD Gaming is 14, Vinci Gaming is 15, and Oh My God is 16. In playoffs, round 1, Edward won against Sunning, and Invictus lost against LNG Esports. Then in qualifiers, Billy B Gaming won against Edward, and Royals Never Give Up won against LNG Esports. In semifinals, Fun Plus Phoenix won against Billy B Gaming, and Royals Never Give Up won against Top Esports. In regionals, Invictus won against JD, and then Invictus won against Gaming. So I think that the teams that we're sending will be Fun Plus, Royals Never Give Up, and Invictus. Based on if I'm reading this right, I will confirm all this. But those are the teams. So to recap, for LCS North America, we're sending Team Liquid, Cloud9, and Clutch. For Europe, it's still undecided, but I believe that they'll be sending G2, Fnatic, and either Splice or Skulak 04. In Korea, they're sending Griffin, Damwon, and SKT, I believe. And in China, they're sending Fun Plus, Royals Never Give Up, and Invictus Gaming. Now, moving on to the Overwatch League. And the Overwatch League currently in stage 4, Atlanta is in first place, followed by San Francisco, then Guangzhou Chargers, Washington Justice, Vancouver, Florida, Bingham, Hangzhou Spark, Los Angeles Gladiators, then the stage playoff cutoff point, London Splitfires, Chengdu Hunters, Los Angeles Valiants, Philadelphia Fusion, Seoul Dynasty, Paris Eternals, New York, Houston, Toronto, Shanghai, Dallas, Boston Uprising. In terms of the entire league, just to get the entire picture, because the Overwatch League also works in like quarters essentially, and at the time recording this, New York Excelsiors and Vancouver Titans are playing, so everything again is subject to change. But in terms of the entire league, Vancouver Titans is first, followed by San Francisco, then New York, Hangzhou Spark, Los Angeles Gladiators, Atlanta, London, Seoul, Guangzhou Chargers, Philadelphia, Shanghai, Chengdu Hunters, Los Angeles Valiants, Paris, Dallas, Houston, Toronto, Washington, and Boston, with Florida Mayhem being in last place. Now, let's get into the real juicy stuff. And we're going to start in July because our last show was in July. And there's some games that were released in July that are really interesting, but the last exciting games were really released this month, of course, in September. But we'll go over all of it. The first one being Final Fantasy Shadowbringer. I actually played this, and I have a lot to say on it, so that's on the list. I'm going to give you my personal take on the expansion a little bit later on into this episode. We had Stranger Things, the video game, come out with the season on Netflix. Sea of Solitude, Dr. Mario World, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was a big one. It didn't get much news, but it is a big one, and that's for the Switch. I think that's probably a really great game from what my friends have been telling me. Wolfenstein Young Blood came out at the end of July. That did not get good reviews because of the way they designed it. They designed it as a co-op experience, and it was very different from the traditional Wolfenstein game. So it also kind of flew under the radar, but because of that, it didn't get as much, love as it probably should have. In August, we had Madden NFL come out, and then we had Ruby come out. Not a whole lot in August. Yukio, the Yakuza Remastered Collection, that's interesting. Remnants from Ash got a lot of hype as a kind of co-op Dark Souls experience. I've watched it. It actually looks really interesting. I think I had a friend who plays it, but it looks really interesting. That one I recommend checking out if you're looking for a kind of Dark Souls-y experience to play with a friend, co-op. Life is Strange 2, Episode 4. That's probably a big one. That came out. Blair Witch was a big one, I think, that got not a whole lot of news. Again, it's one of those games that flew under the radar, but it got a lot of good reviews and good talk about it. Control as well was another big one that got a good reviews and a lot of talk about it that came out in August. I believe that's one of those Epic Game Store exclusives as well. So those are the big ones. In September, we had Claire Full Body come out. Final Fantasy VIII Remastered came out. Monster Hunter World expansion came out, which a lot of people were really excited for. Gears 5 came out, which a lot of people were really excited for. And as of today, recording this, Borderlands 3 also came out, which of course a lot of people are excited for. Then we have some other things that are coming out later on this month, but we will cover those in future episodes. The games that I want to talk about, just while we're here, Borderlands 3. The reviews that I've read on it is that it's nothing new. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the changes that they made to the game were quality of life changes. Of course, this comes from someone who has not played the game yet. I actually plan to play the game on PC when it releases on Steam, and the reason because of that is really cloud saves. I want to have cloud saves because my previous computer had all my Borderlands 2 saves on it, and when I lost that computer and I built the current one that I'm using, if it wasn't for Steam's cloud saves, I would not have that. So if I have to grind to level 80, 72, whatever the max level is on 4 different characters, grind for all those guns over and over again, I would like to have cloud saves. So that's my biggest reason for waiting and sleeping on Borderlands 3. Otherwise, I'd probably get into it because I really like Borderlands, and new Borderlands 2, even if it is just kind of a rehashed Borderlands 2 with quality of life changes, which seems to be the gist of it. I did really enjoy Borderlands 2, and I'm okay with that. As long as it's not the pre-sequel, which was just Borderlands 2, but like they branded as a new game, they didn't really add anything new. I'm okay with Borderlands 3. Of course, it just dropped today. There's not a whole lot of news or anything on it. I'm trying to stay clear of it because if I have to wait 4 months to play it, I don't really want things being spoiled. Gears 5 on the other end, it's on Xbox One and PC. That also got a lot of good reviews. I actually just watched a Let's Play of that. I do plan to play and pick that game up eventually, but for me, that's one of those games that you pick up on sale and not really when you're just right off the bat. Unless you're playing multiplayer, that's one of the games that you just pick up on sale. So that's my kind of take on Gears for that particular thing. But the game itself is fine. It looks fine. They added a co-op multiplayer mode to help new people kind of get into multiplayer, because multiplayer is hard. You have to learn how to cover hop and bounce between cover, and it's kind of a shotgun fest as well. That's always how Gears multiplayer has been. So you kind of have to learn to improve at the game. I'm really good at it. So they made it a little bit easier for newer players to get into it with arcade mode or something like that. So that basically covers the game releases up to, or the major ones up to this point. Over the summer from July to September, so over the past 2 months, those were the biggest game releases. Of course, now that we're in September, we see a lot of the big ones being released. Like, for instance, next month's Destiny 2 Shadowkeeper expansion drops, then Call of Duty, The Witcher 3 on the Switch, which looks awful, but, whatever. I believe Pokemon also drops in October. I don't see a Ghost Recon Breaking Point, and there you go. Pokemon drops in November, so then November you have Pokemon, you'll have Star Wars Jedi The Fallen Order, you'll have Doom Eternal, and then December you'll have Life is Strange Episode 5, as well as other games that I believe are coming out. Warcraft Reforged is supposed to come out. I believe the Kojima game is supposed to come out. Bayonetta 3 is supposed to come out on Switch. So a lot of other things. This is really when it starts ramping up, is in September. So let's move on. The Fortnite World Cup happened in July. It was probably the biggest esports event that happened over the summer besides Worlds. There's actually a lot of Fortnite stuff, and there's a lot of Fortnite drama that kind of happened. The most recent one, the most biggest one that comes to mind for me is Epic released this kind of a state of the game, state of competitive, explaining why they had it added next to the game, and that was complete bullshit to me. TLDR basically is they wanted people who were not good at the game to win more. So they gave them a boost, and that's exactly what it did, and that's what they meant, which is complete bullshit to me, because when I started playing League, you get your ass whooped, right? And then you play the game to get better. No one gives you something, no one gives you, not really a handicap, the opposite of handicap. No one gives you a boost to be better at the game instantly. You work towards it, and that's what makes you feel good. And Fortnite has consistently had this problem, it's consistently died off, and I think this season has really dropped off the face of the earth for Fortnite, because after the World Cup, I've heard no good things, and no one's really playing it. Of course, it's still the top game on Twitch and whatever, the kids love it, but it's really died down from what it was like a year ago, which is really interesting. So back to the Fortnite World Cup. The overview is this dude Buga won the solo World Cup. He's 16-year-old kid. That was the average of all the participants at the Fortnite World Cup were like 16-year-old kids. That was the average. So he won, I believe, $3 million. We'll look at it in a second. In the duos, Noxarock and Aqua won their duo championship. In the creative, because that's a thing, a category apparently, FaZe Kaizero and his team won the creative World Cup, and the Pro AMA, which they had earlier, which is a pro player and a streamer, whatever, Airwalks and Ellie Grimm won theirs. So let's just browse over these real quick. Creative, FaZe Kizaros and his team, Fishham, I guess that's their team name, or that's their sign. They won, and then how do they do this? Now that I'm looking at this, because creative, of course, this is like something that they had on July 6th, but it doesn't seem to be a huge thing. So I guess everyone just in their team, their individual team, and Ninja had his own team. I wonder how they did that. I may have to look into that. But those are the guys who won, in case you're interested. Pro MA, that's a little bit more interesting. The Pro AMA is what they had last year, and I believe it was around like June-ish where E3 was going on, and that was like their big, that was like the peak of Fortnite where everyone was watching it, where like Ninja and Marshmello won. And I guess they didn't win again, but I guess those two participated again. Tfue, another big name, played with Nav. So that was a big one, but again, it's like that was like the peak of Fortnite. It was $3 million to a charity is what they played for, I think, of their choice. Then they had FanFest. This doesn't really seem to be anything. But then they had the standings for the World Cup. So this is what we probably really want to look at. They have all the weeks on here in case you want to go and look. I'm not going to go through that. I'm just going to go through the top 3 finalists for duos. And that was Nerox and Aqua. They won $3 million. And then the second place winners were Rojo and Woolsies. They won about 22 mil. That's right. And Evac and Cersei won about 18. And those were the top 3 for duo. For the finalists, it was Puhaga, who won 30 mil, and then Pesmlum, I believe how you say that, who won 18, and then Epic Whale, who won 12. Congratulations to them for winning Fortnite World Cup. That's pretty awesome. I mean, the biggest thing that I think, honestly, and this is talking offwards, the 30 mil is really nothing. Because his organization took a chunk of that, the government takes a chunk of that, so you're not left with actual like 3 mil, or not 30 yet, 3 million. You're not really left with that. However, what it does get you, and what it definitely got this Buhaga guy, is a lot of publicity. If you go on Twitch ever since the World Cup, no one knew who the fuck this kid was. Since he won the World Cup, now he's like, you know, not Tfue level famous, but he's pretty up there. People are watching the stream, and that's really where the real money comes in, is from that publicity, which is real nice. Moving on, also big Fortnite news is Microsoft bought Ninja to stream on their platform Mixer exclusively. This is probably really well known, but if you're wondering where's Ninja on Twitch, he's on Mixer now because Microsoft cut him a check to be on there. So that's actually really big news because Mixer is a small platform, and to be honest, Twitch needs a competitor. So now that Microsoft did this, and they did this again July-ish, or early August, that's huge news and a huge gain for Microsoft. The problem is that if you go on Mixer and look when Ninja's streaming, if you look at Fortnite, he's half of the viewership, which means he's probably a majority of the viewership on Mixer right now. Which means, are they gonna, buy another person to stream on their platform exclusively? Like a League streamer or something like that, or or a WoW streamer, or because WoW's really big or something like that. Who knows? We don't really know yet. Because he's only been streaming on there exclusively for 2 months, really. So it's yet to see, but it's a huge win for Microsoft. The new Magic set, Throne of Eldoran, has been releasing spoilers each week. Just so you know, so if you're into Magic the Gathering, the card game, it's been releasing spoilers. So go check those out because the power level in this set is actually pretty high and it looks really interesting. It's Grimm fairy tale themed, which I love the Grimm fairy tales. I've read them. I've read them a lot growing up. So seeing it like the magic mirror and the princess and the trickster and all those things in Grimm's fairy tales as magic cards is really fucking interesting, and I really enjoy that. So I highly recommend you go check them out. In other news, GameStop has been doing a lot of work recently behind the scenes. They don't really have anything going for them in terms of in terms of sales, because everyone buys their games online. They buy them through the PlayStation Store, they buy them through the Xbox Store, they buy them through Steam, they buy them through Epic Games, etc., Amazon. So GameStop's been dying. They've closed a lot of stores over the last couple months. Just closing a lot of stores, trying to come up with a game plan to still be relevant. And it seems that their game plan is to become kind of an esports hub. If you ever go to here in Chicago, we have in Skokie, if you're in like that area, which is a little bit a suburb outside of Chicago, we have a gaming lounge called Ignite. And it's basically you go there, you pay X amount of money to get X amount of hours, and you can play games there. And it seems like GameStop wants to do that, but they want that to do for esports. So if you have an esports tournament, you host it at one of GameStop's stores instead of maybe Ignite. They also laid off a lot of Game Informer's employees. I believe 19, and they're like a staff of 20. But a lot of Game Informer employees got laid off because Game Informer has been their primary magazine. Generally, if you got like a subscription with GameStop, they would like mail a Game Informer magazine to you, and it's one of the real like paperback gaming magazines that's still around. But Game Informer or GameStop has been making a lot of moves as a company, and I'm definitely gonna watch that to see what goes on with that. Moving on, Telltale's game studio has also come back under new ownership. So Telltale's died because of really bad management, really, and a lot of the employees didn't really get anything out of it. You can see like also a lot of their games were being taken off Steam because they didn't know who to pay. Steam didn't know who to pay because the company didn't exist anymore. Somebody bought up the remains under new management, and they're gonna start making Telltale games again. However, they don't have a lot of licenses that they did. I believe they just have The Wolf Among Us and Batman because they lost The Walking Dead, so they don't have that. Probably the biggest news within the last month, WoW Classic. WoW Classic came out. It's been fucking huge ever since. Everyone's been playing WoW Classic. Everyone's been watching WoW Classic. It's literally fucking huge. I tried to play it. I personally couldn't get into it. Now, let me dive into that a little bit more. WoW Classic is to me, it's a history book. It's a book that I'm opening up and I'm reading to see why do people like the original World of Warcraft so much. It's a history book. But for a lot of other people, it's nostalgia, right? That's really why WoW Classic is doing so well. It's nostalgia. I actually found that me playing WoW Classic, I had more interest and fun and development of the story of playing current WoW than I did more WoW Classic. But again, I didn't grow up on WoW Classic, and current WoW retail WoW has a lot more quality of life features. So that's where it drove me. but a lot of people, it's like, wow, because of just kind of our current environment and state that we are in like our society and in America, a lot of people want to go back, and I understand it, but that's, I think, why WoW Classic is seeing so much success. I don't think it's going to remain that successful, because I think a lot of people are probably going to move on to other things. They can't add new content. Otherwise, if they do, like, let's say they add the next expansion, right? They add Burning Crusade, and then they add Cataclysm, and then Mr. Pandoria's, and then Warlords of Draenor, and they keep going. Eventually it just becomes retail WoW, and it's not classic anymore. So they can't add, so eventually all those people are just doing the same thing. Unless, like, Blizzard says they'll do what the community wants, but it's not... who knows? Really, the success on it really depends on how far people want to relive their nostalgia, or how long they want to relive the nostalgia. Moving on to probably my more preferred MMO, Final Fantasy Shadowbringer. I wasn't able to talk about this because I started up, again, life hit me and I wasn't able to talk about it. But in case you want to know, first things first, the OST, the soundtrack, which is beautiful, by the way. I talk about music all the time. The soundtrack is fucking fantastic. It was released on Amazon and Spotify yesterday, or not yesterday, on Wednesday. So I highly recommend that you